All right, we're going to get started because at least in here we definitely need the full time. I'm going to be down front because we got lots of pictures, so you may want to move down front so you can see better. We're not going to be in the back tonight. I think that will be beneficial to you to be closer down front. I want to get started with the prayer list and run through these, but we have a really long prayer list, and so a lot of these you are familiar with the situation, so I'm just going to mention the names, and then I'm going to share with you a few updates on a few other prayer requests. We pray for Shelly Eric, for Fred Barnes, who has upcoming hip surgery, for Charles Bradley, who's still waiting on whether he's going to have heart surgery or whether he can just have stents placed, for a friend of the DeCrows who has esophageal cancer, for Bob Diamond, for Calvin Harris and Hattie Shell, who are undergoing treatment at St. Jude, for Wayne Hewlin, who's still waiting the results of his melanoma surgery on his face, for Danny and Leah Knight, Charles Petrie, who's basically bedridden right now with back issues, Ann Scalzo, Vince Scalzo, Bob and Betty Ward, and Zach Wilson. The new prayer requests that we have are Max Albel was requested. He's a recent graduate of Harding, and they found multiple masses on his lungs and liver last week, and so they're afraid of what that's going to be, and so we want to be praying for Max. The DeCrows requested prayers for their cousin Stephanie Ellerman, who lost her husband in a tragic truck accident last week. Greg Grinder suffered a stroke and should be either discharged today or tomorrow, and so we want to pray for him. My understanding is he doesn't have movement in his right side at this time. And then we always pray for James and Edith Jones, but James had a fall on Sunday, late Saturday. He got really bruised up and beat up, and they decided to take him to the hospital, and while there they have discovered that he has broken his neck. He's broken about 3 different things in his neck, but it's not going to require surgery, so he's now going to be in a neck brace for the next couple of weeks and months, and so we certainly want to pray for him. Let me remind you that there if you might be in here by mistake, there's a singing class going on in the back, and there's a prayer discipleship environment, prayer and fasting environment that's happening. We had like a huge crowd at the 1 o'clock class because a lot of people came at 1 and said, I'm coming at 1 so I can come back at 6:30 and do the other thing. So there was some excitement about tonight, so you might be in here by mistake and you mean to be in the back, and it won't hurt my feelings if you want to head back there now. That's all that I have, so let's say a prayer for these people, and then I'll share a few announcements with you and we'll get started. Father, we come to you tonight on behalf of all of these that we've mentioned. We lift them up to you, and we know that you know every situation. We've seen you over and over at our church just answer our prayers for the healing of our beloved brothers and sisters in Christ. And we just ask that you would be present in all these requests. Tonight we especially lift up James Jones, who's just suffered this broken neck, and we know that he and Edith are just in crisis right now, and we just pray for them. We pray for our sister Darlis McCord that's nervous about her cataract surgery in the morning, and that you'll just give her peace. We pray for those that have lost loved ones and are dealing with cancer, and we just ask that you would bring healing to those situations. We've seen you heal Hattie. We know that you're healing little Calvin, and we just give you praise for that. Tonight we pray for the group that will be singing in the back. We pray for the group that will be spending the night in prayer and fasting, and we just ask for your blessing on both of those. And we look forward to this time of study and reflection, and we lift all of this up to you now in the name of Jesus, and we ask for your blessing over this next hour. Amen. Let me mention a couple things. Sunday is our graduate Sunday, and we have 2 this year, Alechi Madu and Anna Wright. There are 2 baskets out in the foyer, and so Sunday, if you want to bring cards with you to share with them, I know that they would appreciate that. So Seth Turner is going to be preaching Sunday for our service, and then at the end, we'll just have an honor. We can't have banquets anymore because we don't fit in our building, so we're just going to honor them at the end of both services on Sunday morning. The Paragould Children's Home will be here Monday. If you want to bring items, those items are in the bulletin or on the weekly church email. And then I shared this with the 1 o'clock class. We have another shower coming up next Sunday, and I know at this point we all have shower fatigue. This shower is for Grace Ann Butt and Jack Cannon. It's their wedding shower. It'll be after second service. They're registered at Target, Dillard's, and Amazon. And I reminded the 1 o'clock class the same that I'll remind you. I know this is like our 20th weekend in a row with a shower. But the reason for that is we have lots of people with babies and kids and are getting married and really good things happening in their life, and that's a blessing. And so don't get shower fatigue. Show up and keep blessing all these people, because that's awesome to have so many showers. It really is like our 9th shower in a row, I think, in the span of just a couple of weeks. So let's support Grace Ann and Jack as they get ready to start their new life together. Okay, so we're going to start our turkey class tonight, and I have to show you what Maggie brought with her tonight. What goes best with turkey? Cranberry sauce. So she, of course, Maggie brought me some cranberry sauce tonight. That's awesome. I also will say it's interesting to be talking about this because I've been to Turkey now for a total of 8 days. Everett Hufford is in the room, and he's probably been 80 times, and so 10 times. Sorry, I way overestimated. So everything that I say tonight, he is going to just fact check me. He's going to give extra information, and that's awesome. You're not allowed to answer any of our quiz questions or anything like that. You just need to sit back there and just be here tonight, if that's okay. But we're going to do our biblical turkey tour tonight. So I want to tell you a little bit how I ended up on this trip. I was writing my dissertation on the book of Revelation, so I was spending a lot of time talking about the 7 churches of Asia Minor. And there is a foundation called this Christian Scholarship Foundation, and there were some wealthy people in the past that created a scholarship fund for students who are working on PhDs in Churches of Christ specifically. And it's run out of Yale Divinity School. The dean of Yale Divinity School, Greg Sterling, is a member of Churches of Christ. And so there's a board of people, and they give out awards, and the awards are like from $2,000 to $20,000. And so I thought I would be bold because I was working on a PhD in Churches of Christ. And I just asked for the smallest. I was like, 2,000 maybe? And I was like, I might use it on a trip to go to Turkey. And they graciously granted me a $5,000 gift. And so this trip was kind of paid for through that scholarship foundation for me to go and visit some places that I was researching and writing about. And so this is how this came together. So this trip was fully paid for and ready to go in 2019, and you can imagine what happened then. And so it got put off for 2 years, and then like 3 weeks before I was supposed to leave, war breaks out in Ukraine. So that was really great timing, but I just thought, I'm going to go. And so we're going to see. I looked at a map before I went, and I figured I could swim over to Greece if I needed to. I'll show you here on a map in just a second, but let's start. What I want to do tonight is answer the question of why in the world have a whole class on Turkey? Why Turkey? Because usually when we think about kind of Bible places or Bible lands, we think of Israel being the Holy Land. And you think about, man, if I'm going to take a vacation anywhere to visit sites, Greece, baby, right? That's where I want to go. And so why Turkey? Because we don't typically probably associate Turkey with a Bible lands tour. That's how I think most people think. Let me do a tangent here. Turkey hates the way that we pronounce the name of their country in English because of this very reason. They hate that we associate their name with the bird because that's not what it means in their language. And so they're actually, they have this massive campaign that the government's spending a lot of money in to try to change the way that the name Turkey is pronounced in English. They would rather us say Turkiye, because they don't want it to be Turkey. So when you're on the planes, and they give you your seatbelt instructions in Turkish, then they say, buckle up your, belt as we're leaving Turkey. They want you to say it that way because they do not like the Cranberry Thanksgiving Association. But I'm going to say Turkey because that's just how we say that. Maybe you're not great at geography. We're talking about the Republic of Turkey today, which is right here. On the map. To the north of it is the Black Sea, and just to the north of the Black Sea is Ukraine. So geographically it's pretty close to Ukraine. And we'll see in a second that there's only one nation that actually buffers the border from Turkey and Russia. And so this is a modern map of Turkey. So here's Georgia and there's Russia. So there's only one kind of... Now, some of you, if you've been watching the news, here is the Bosphorus Strait right here, and here is the Dardanelles Strait right here through the Sea of Marmara. And so you'll notice that Russia has access to the Black Sea, but the only way to get out of the Black Sea is through these straits right here to get out to the Aegean, Mediterranean, and then beyond. And so because Turkey is an allied nation, a NATO nation, NATO has asked Turkey to close off these straits to Russian ships. So I hope you can see now, if you haven't been aware of how geopolitically important Turkey is right now to what's the conflict that's happening there. And they have. They're not allowing Russian ships to pass through those straits. But this right here, right on we'll see a picture later, this is Istanbul, which is right here on the Bosphorus Straits. What we did was we flew into Istanbul and spent 2 days in Istanbul looking around. Then we took a plane down here to Antalya, and we spent 2 days there and kind of traveled to some places. The day after we left, the second people in command for Ukraine and Russia, I can't remember their names right now, but they held some kind of a peace talk in Antalya, like we just missed it by 1 day. So it's an important city. I do want you to notice, do you notice how much of Turkey borders water? Now, this right here is Greece, and so when you imagine Greece and you imagine beautiful, let's go see the islands, let's see the green water, that's also all of this. So Turkey is actually a vacation destination for Europeans. And the two nations that they have their most vacationers from are Ukraine and Russia. And so this is going to be a really interesting year for them. So they're not sure if it's going to kind of decimate the travel right now. But there is a lot of beautiful vacation Greece-like things there that you just might not associate with that. Do you see this word Izmir? We spent several days there. I don't know Turkish. Our guide explained it to us, but do you see Izmir? Izmir. This is the modern city where the ancient city of Smyrna was. And so this is a modern city, Izmir, which is ancient Smyrna. So that's one of the 7 churches there. And so all the 7 churches of Revelation are in this area, and this is where we spent our entire tour when I went. This is not a great picture because I took it out of a book and I couldn't hold the book straight, so this is the best you got. But this is the 7 different regions where there are biblical sites. This is, if we were to go back to the 1st century AD, to the New Testament times, let me go back here. Okay, this is modern day Turkey. You see all this right here? If we go back to the 1st century, what is the modern-day Republic of Turkey would have actually been a number of provinces in the Roman Empire. So it would have been broken up into several provinces. So the provinces are Asia, Pontus, Bithynia, Galatia, Cappadocia, Cilicia, Lycia, and Pamphylia. These are the kind of provinces that are in what is modern-day Turkey. Now, do any of these sound familiar immediately? Like Cilicia. Does anybody know what Cilicia is? The Apostle Paul. He's from Tarsus in Cilicia. And so these are provinces that were part of the Roman Empire in what is the modern-day Republic of Turkey. All I want to do for tonight is I want to get you pumped for the rest of the class. So I want to tell you why I think you should travel to Turkey with us this quarter. I want to tell you why you should tour Turkey and not Israel or Greece. Those are great, but I want to make the case for Turkey. How about that? Okay, so first I want to start in the Old Testament. Mount Ararat is in Turkey. Does that sound familiar to you, right? And the story of the flood. Haran is in modern-day the Republic of Turkey, which is where Abraham was. And if you go there, I didn't go there, but if you go there, they even have things set up that you can kind of see and attend. Does the word Hittite mean anything to you? If you would have gone a long time ago, the ancient Hittite Empire was located mostly in what is modern-day Turkey. And so in the Old Testament, whenever you see the word Hittite, that is kind of modern-day Turkey. So that list of Canaanite, Hittite, Amorite, Perizzite, Hivite, Jebusite, the Hittite part, modern-day Turkey. And they're all the time finding really cool stuff that helps us understand the text better. And so here's a peace treaty from the Pharaoh and the Egyptians and the Hittites that dates back to the 13th century BC. There's a picture of one of their goddesses, one of their idols. There's just all kinds of stuff in museums that helps illuminate Old Testament peoples and texts. And so it is relevant for the Old Testament. But I'm more interested in the New Testament. I went for the 7 churches of Asia Minor, so I'm going to take privilege here and just focus mostly on the New Testament for our class tonight. When we go back to the Old Testament, does anybody remember what the Babylonians did to Jerusalem in the 6th century BC? What happened?
They captured them. They
wiped them off the map, right? So a good example of that right now is Ukraine, right? You've got a nation that's invading and they're destroying the country, and what has now happened to Ukrainian populations? They've been dispersed, right? They've gone everywhere and they're resettling everywhere. Now when we get to a date where there's peace there and there's no more war, what 2 things are going to happen to those people that are dispersed?
people are going to come back.
Some people will go back, many of them will not, right? And so the same thing happened in the 6th century BC. Some people returned after they were able to return, but many of them never did. And that is called the Diaspora or the dispersion. And so there are now Jews who are dispersed everywhere. Now let me go, I don't know how far I got to go to get back to a map. Right here. Okay, a map. Jerusalem's down here, right? So if you're going to be dispersed, you have pretty limited options where you're going to be dispersed. You can be dispersed to the south, and there's Egypt. And actually, one of the largest populations of Jews outside of Jerusalem in the ancient world was in Alexandria in Egypt. And so a lot of them did go down to Egypt. It's one of the largest populations of Jews outside of Jerusalem. If you go over here, you're not going to because it's the Arabian Desert. If you're going to go over here, there's Mediterranean Sea. So those 2 things are off limits. So where's the only other way you can go? Up here. And Jews were dispersed all in this area, which is why in the book of Acts, every single city in what is modern-day Turkey that Paul goes to, where can he go and preach to people? The synagogue. Why are there established synagogues in almost every city that you walk into in what is modern-day Turkey? People had been dispersed there for centuries, and they had been there, and there were Jewish communities that had formed. There were synagogues. So this had happened, and so there were lots of Jews around there. By the way, the word Anatolia, like Turkey is the modern-day Republic of Turkey that's only existed since like 1923. So Anatolia is a word to kind of refer to this region that goes back thousands of years. And so when I use Anatolia, think modern-day Turkey. But it's hard to, because it has changed names a lot, so it's hard to, what do you call it? Okay. So there are Jews all throughout these areas, these provinces. So let's look at a couple texts. In Acts 2, at Pentecost, when the Jews are coming from everywhere to be back in Jerusalem for the festival of Pentecost, notice where they're coming from. Cappadocia, Pontus and Asia, Phrygia, and Pamphylia. Where are those? Cappadocia, Pontus, Asia, Pamphylia, and I can't remember what the names were, but anyway, this is Acts 2. There are Jews in all these places, and they're coming from those provinces down to Jerusalem for the festival. In Acts 6, there are those who belong to the synagogue of the freedmen. This is a synagogue, and notice where they're from, the island of Cyrene and Alexandria. Here's some of those Egyptian, Alexandrian Jews that are referenced right here, but there's also Jews from Cilicia and Asia So they're Jews from this area. The entire letter of 1 Peter, notice where 1 Peter is addressed to. The exiles in the dispersion. Now you know what that means.
James the same? That goes to the Christians.
Yeah, to the exiles. But this one specifically lists the provinces. To the people who are in Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. Who are these Christians that are being written in this circular letter? Everybody in all the churches of modern day Turkey. And then, of course, Revelation is written to the 7 churches that are in Asia and the province of Asia. Okay, now we're going to move through some major players in our New Testament. What is the significance of modern day Turkey for the Apostle Paul? He goes by, part of his identity is Paul of Tarsus. Where is Tarsus? Tarsus is in the province of Cilicia. Paul, after escaping a death attempt in Jerusalem, he returns to Tarsus and spends some time there before Barnabas comes and gets him from there to go on the missionary journeys. And so he's back in Tarsus. And when Paul has to kind of state who he is, he says, I'm a Jew from Tarsus in Cilicia. No, a citizen of an important city. I beg you, let me speak to the people. And so the Apostle Paul himself is from the area of modern-day Turkey that you would attend. Yeah?
Jonah took off and headed for Tarsus.
Tarshish.
Different place.
Yeah, different place. Good question, though. So Tarsus is right here in Cilicia. So it's in modern-day Turkey. This is a map of Paul's missionary journeys, and we won't go through the whole thing, but here's my point. You know, we raised the question of Israel or Greece. Why would you tour Turkey? This over here is Greece, and look at the time Paul spends here versus all the lines that Paul spends here in the 3 missionary journeys. If you wanted to go to the place where Paul spent more of his time, where would you go? You wouldn't go to Greece, you would go to Turkey. Because in all 3 of the missionary journeys, look at how much traveling he does in what is modern-day Turkey. He spends more time there than he does in Greece. So if you're trying to connect with Apostle Paul and you're trying to go to a place, I would want you to try to think about visiting Turkey. Not only that, but we have entire letters in our New Testament that are written to churches in what is modern-day Turkey. So the letter to the Galatians. Now remember, Galatia is a province, so it's written to all the Jesus-believing communities in the entire province, and it probably would have been circled around to several different groups that were in the entire province of Galatia. Does that make sense? The letter to the Ephesians, which itself many think would have been a circular letter that would have been read and shared. And then also Colossae is also in Asia Minor. So we have entire letters of Paul that are written just to churches there. But not only that, when Paul's writing to Corinth, he's not sitting in Corinth when he's writing to Corinth. Paul's actually writing that letter from Turkey. So the letter to Corinth is written while he's in Ephesus. And so at the very end he says, the churches of Asia send greetings to you guys over there in Greece. Who are the churches in Asia? They're the same churches addressed in the book of Revelation. They're those churches in Asia Minor. Does that make sense? So it's not only just that he's writing to churches in Asia, he's also writing letters from Asia to the churches. Now, I just want to give you a taste of how knowing some geography and some maps and where places are help you get a sense of some of these things that we see in our New Testament. So here is Colossians 1:1, and then here's chapter 4. Paul is writing to the saints in Colossae, and he says, I testify for him that he's worked hard for you and for those in... Now, when we read this, I want you to think about the implications of this, and I'm going to ask you, what do you think this kind of implies about these cities? Okay? For those in Laodicea and Hierapolis, Luke, the beloved physician, and Demas greet you. Give my greetings to the brothers and sisters in Laodicea and to Nympha and the church in her house. And when this letter has been read among you, have it read also in the church of the Laodiceans. And see that you read also the letter from Laodicea. Now let me stop there. What's the implications of that statement? Yeah, and there's also a lost letter, right? That see that you also read the letter from Laodicea. That's a letter we don't have, unless it's the book of Ephesians. And some people think it is, but I'm not going to wade into that tonight. So, probably it's a lost letter, I think. But what are some implications of these verses between Colossae, Laodicea, and Hierapolis? What do you think? They're close to each other. You read their letter, they'll read your letter. Y'all just pass this stuff around. You know why that is? Because here's Hierapolis, here's Laodicea, here's Colossae. Laodicea to Colossae is 10 miles. Colossae to Hierapolis is about 11.4 miles. Laodicea to Hierapolis is 8.4 miles. And because of the terrain there, I've got this picture, and I realized later I've got a picture I can show you where I'm standing. I've got this picture. I'm standing in Laodicea, and I don't move. My feet are planted. And I turn, and I take a picture, and you can see Hierapolis. And then I turn this way, and I take a picture, and you can see Colossae. The terrain is such that you could see these cities where you were. It's not like here where I can't see 10 miles that way, but there you can. You could literally see these three places at any time in the cities that you were in. And you see traces of that kind of thing even at the end of Colossians. Paul just expects them to be able to just, hey, walk this letter over there. By the way, when you go to work tomorrow and when y'all are doing business together, people are constantly going in and out between these three cities. They're all in what's called the Lycus River Valley. And so these are the kinds of things that touring these places will help you get a sense for. Paul uses Ephesus, which is one of the biggest, largest cities outside of Rome. It's a capital city, and he spends 3 years in Ephesus, which is his longest period to spend anywhere. And what he literally does is rent out a lecture hall there. He starts a school in Ephesus and spends 3 years teaching there. Now, why would you do that? Ephesus is the largest urban center. It's a port city. Everybody's coming through there, going out from there, moving through there, doing business there. So you go to the biggest urban place, you convert some people, and then that becomes the launching point for Paul's ministry is in Asia Minor. Okay, so that's Paul. How about John? Early Christian tradition placed John the Apostle's ministry and burial in Ephesus. I don't know if you knew that, but there are really strong traditions that place John in Ephesus. I'm going to show you some pictures in a minute. We visited here, but this is the Basilica of St. John. It's a church that was built, and it goes back 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th century AD until it was destroyed. But this was a massive church that was built over the supposed place of John's tomb. So I want to show you this before I go to the next picture. Do you see this little round thing right here? And then do you see this little thing right here? This is the supposed place where John's burial happened, underneath this thing. And then you see the seats. This is where the elders sit when everybody comes to church. And so you come, and people made pilgrimage from all over the world. In fact, if you go there, I've got some pictures we can look at here, but some of these columns right here, on the sides of the columns it says Tim Favazza visited here, and this was etched like thousands of years ago. They would travel from all over to come to where the Apostle John was buried, and they would etch their names in the columns and things like that. So this is supposedly the tomb of St. John. Now, Everett probably will help me out here, but this is my thinking, so this is one of the places you correct me. My thinking when we're dealing with these kinds of traditions, with these kinds of sites, is like there's not a way to be 100% that like John's bones are underneath this. But these traditions go back really early, and unless you have really good reason not to trust the tradition, like I think he's probably under there. I don't know.
Well, when you just think of things that are related to the history of the United States 200 years ago.
Yes.
When it wasn't documented by Polaroid cameras.
Yes.
It's pretty clear what they were.
Yeah.
The same thing there. In oral tradition, those first couple hundred years, especially as impactful as Christianity was.
Yes.
I trust many of those.
Yeah, so I trust them too, and especially if you've got the motive to build a church as big as that, that's based on something. That's based on some reason for that. So I tend to trust some of these major things. Now, I don't trust that some little church over in Armenia has one of John's little pinky toe bones or something like that. But with major traditions like this, I tend to trust them. This is what this would have looked like. Can you imagine this in like the 5th century AD? Can you imagine this building? It was like 3 stories. I mean, it just would have been unbelievably incredible to have visited there. There's a cool thing in here. They were super efficient with the way they did baptisms. So they have a baptismal font because people want to travel here and be baptized. So the baptistry is down in the floor, so it's about floor level, and there are stairs that go down in it, and then there's the baptistry, and then there's stairs that come up out of it. And so all the people that were there for pilgrimage to be baptized, they would walk down, you dip them, and then you walk up, and then the line just keeps going. And so they were pretty efficient back then, and they also knew how to build pretty big church buildings. Of course, for me, I'm interested in Revelation, and modern-day Turkey has significance for Revelation. John is right here on Patmos. Now, let me clear up a misconception. I don't think that Patmos, he's eating coconuts and he's cast away and he's sitting in a cave, because archaeology shows, and we know that Patmos actually had a population of people on there. There was an urban place on there. And so it's likely the Romans did want him exiled because of his faith, but they just said, leave us alone and go over there on the island and we don't have to worry about you. So it's more like he's kind of just exiled over there, but he's probably not like eating coconuts in a cave. So he's on Patmos, just kind of out of their hair over here. And do you see, this is chapter 2, and do you notice something about the order that the letters occur in the book of Revelation? If you're traveling from Patmos over here, where are you going to start? You're going to go into the port in Ephesus, and then you're going to follow this route. You're just going to make a circle. So the letters are given in the order in which they would have been read in these cities and in the churches in these cities. It's the actual delivery plan for how they were to be read. Now, you notice, remember, Laodicea is mentioned. What is one of those places that's really close to Laodicea? Colossae and Hierapolis. Now, what's interesting about that is there's only 7 churches addressed. I think the number 7 is specific. It's meaning all the churches. So I think that people in Colossae and Hierapolis would have also read Revelation. It would have been a message for them. Because as you saw, quite honestly, what was happening in Laodicea was likely happening in those other 2 cities as well, because they're so close and they're so similar and they're so in communication with one another. All right, you're bored by now, so we're going to do a quiz game, and I'm going to test you. This is where Everett, you're not allowed to answer any of these. I'm going to quiz you and see, is this Anatolian city mentioned in the New Testament? I'm going to see how well you know your New Testament here. Sardis, mentioned in the New Testament. I started off easy. I wanted you to feel some confidence here, okay? It's going to get worse from here. So yes, of course, Sardis is mentioned. It's one of the churches addressed in the book of Revelation. So now we've built your confidence. We'll get a little bit more challenging. Perga. Not Pergamum, Perga. We got to know. Come on, guys. You can't be shy. What? Okay. Yes, Perga is there. Perga is the place that John Mark leaves Paul. Do you remember that? That Paul tries to take John Mark, and they go up to Perga in Pamphylia, but John leaves them, and he returns to Jerusalem, and he has to go through Perga. There's a port in Perga. You can go there today, and there's still a port. So this is where you're sailing in and out of. If you're going to go to this region, you go to Perga. And so I want to make a case for this. Some of the places we might look at as we go through the next couple of weeks, they're barely mentioned in our New Testament like Perga. But if you go to Perga today, there are some pretty incredible ruins there that you can look at. Perga's got a great kind of excavation that's happened there. And now it says when Paul passed through here, he spoke the word in Perga, and we don't know for sure that there's a church there, but what usually happens when Paul preaches the word in a city? There's at least some believers. And so here's the thing about Perga. It doesn't have a huge role in the book of Acts, But when we look at those ruins, you now know this is a city that Paul's just kind of passing in and out of. He's preaching there. If you want to know what like an ancient city that Paul's spending time in and out of, Perga would be a great place we'd want to look. So we might look at some ruins and you're like, why are we in Perga? I've never even heard of that. And it's like, actually, it helps us understand the world of Paul better because he is passing in and out of Perga. Now, let me say this. Because Turkey is a modern-day mostly Muslim nation, they have not realized the treasure of archaeological sites that they have for Christian tourism. So they have not done a good job supporting excavations of Christian sites. If you go to Colossae, I'll show you a picture. Nothing to see. There's a hill, there's grass on it, that's Colossae. Everything is under the ground, and somebody's got to shell out the money to excavate that. And imagine the tourism that they would have if they excavated Colossae. It would be huge for Christians. So there's been a lot of scholars like Mark Fairchild and Mark Wilson who have been making all kinds of presentations to the government of Turkey, and Turkey in the last decade has really turned the corner, and they're digging up a lot of these sites. But because of that, Turkey and people have spent a lot of time at places like Perga and not Colossae. Does that make sense? So I think in the years to come, there's even going to be more reason for Christians to be interested in going to Turkey because there's been some super exciting announcements. There was a conference held like 2 months ago that they're about to begin excavations in Colossae. So we're going to turn up some graffiti from Paul here in just the next couple of years. It's going to be awesome. Cyzicus, is it in there? You were going to get one right eventually, Tim.
Hey, I'm 2 for 3.
Now, by the way, all the fake cities I've embedded in our quiz, they're real cities. They're just not mentioned in our New Testament. So this really is a Miletus. What's it known for, New Testament? Do you remember? What were you going to say, Emmanuel? Yes. Good. Something about Paul. That's right, Emmanuel. This is where Paul meets the Ephesian elders. Do you remember that? When he's on his way down to Jerusalem, the elders from Ephesus come and they join him at Miletus, and they have that cry fest, and they're kissing one another because they think he's going to his death, or at least to be seriously harmed. What about Myra? Yes? You say yes? Does anybody know what famous early Christian is from Myra? Come on, guys. This is disappointing. Nicholas of Myra? Saint Nicholas? Santa Claus is from Myra, and y'all don't even know that. Yes, it's there in Acts 27:5. This is one of the cities. This is where Santa Claus is from. Myra. Adramyttium. Is it in there? Yes? That's a total guess. It is. He knew it. Yeah, he knew it. Embarking on a ship of Adramyttium. It's in there in Acts. How about Assos? It's in there. Acts 20, verse 13. What about Italia? What does this look like, by the way? Do you remember earlier when we were looking at the modern day cities? Antalya. Do you remember that city? That's the modern day version of this city. It's there. Acts 20 and verse 13. What about Nidus? No? Emmanuel is firm on his no. Yes. It's in there, Emmanuel. It's in there in Acts 20, verse 13. What about Patara? Emmanuel, what do you say? He's holding down the no back there. It's in there, Emmanuel! Acts 21:1. Yeah, what about Ankara? We got a no and a yes. This is intra-family rivalry here. Your mother wins. Yeah. What about this one?
No.
Well, it's finally no. And I put 2 in a row to really throw you off here. All right. This is the last one. What about Trogelium? What do you think? I want to hear from everybody on this one. What do you think?
That's the 238th element.
What do you think? Yes or no? Okay, here's the answer. Yes and no. I started you on a positive one. There is in your Bibles, if you look at Acts 20:15, there's a note that says there is kind of famous manuscript of the book of Acts that says that Paul spent some time at Trogelium. So it's kind of in there and kind of not in there. So he may have spent time in Trogelium or not. So I wanted to begin on a positive and easy note, and I wanted to end where you were right, whether you said yes or no. So I hope you feel good about the quiz that you've just taken. But I just mentioned this to say, all this stuff is there, and we don't even pay attention to this stuff. We don't think about the geography. We read over these words, and we don't give them a second thought. But here is Italia, which is modern-day Antalya. Here's Myra. Here's Patara. Here's Cnidus. Here is Assos. These are some of the places that we read. Now, what do you notice about the lines and about the situation here with all these islands? Paul spends a lot of time on ships. Is that important in the book of Acts?
Yes.
Does Paul have good luck on ships? Can you kind of see how if you're on a ship and you're kind of hugging the coast here and you get in some bad seas, what might happen over here in one of these places? Shipwreck.
Run into rocks.
Exactly. So I hope you can kind of see that, like, just knowing the map and the geography of what we're reading here helps us kind of have a vision of this. I just briefly want to give you a glimpse of some of these places and what's there with just one slide apiece, basically, to tease you into wanting more for this class. Miletus, this is where Paul meets the Ephesian elders. And look at just the incredible ruins that you could see in Miletus. Here's Perga that I referenced. This is where Paul is passing through, Perga. And over here, there's just incredible ruins where these are streets. And remember what we said about Perga. John Mark leaves him in Perga, but he passes through Perga on his way to Pisidian Antioch. And when it says he's passing through the city, Paul's walking on these streets. Like, these are the streets that Paul is walking on. Now, see this awesome theater? I have a personal story to tell you. This was like the first place we went. And we walked the bus was over here, like the visitor center. That's the theater, but we were moving quickly because we were trying to see as much as we could in 8 days. And on a tour like that, it's like, we got 1 hour at this site and we're back on the bus, So our tour guide took us all the way down here, and we looked up here, and we walked back, and we went all the way down this street over here, and we were like way over here. And they're like, we need to make our way back to the bus. And I'm like, what about that theater? And they're like, you need to run over there if you want to see that. So I sprinted from over here all the way back up here to go see the theater, and these are not like paved streets. These are cobblestone things. And I like pulled this muscle in my foot, and so I was limping for the rest of the time I was in Turkey. I was like, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to go see this thing. And so when everyone met me back at the bus, I was covered in sweat. I was just, it was a wreck. But I was like, I got to go see this theater over here, and it did not disappoint, and no one else saw it. So there you go. I was the youngest one on the trip, so when we were in Istanbul, there was a good old boy Texas preacher who just somehow didn't follow our group. We turned around and he was just gone. And so we were up in the big plaza where the Hagia Sophia is, and the guide was like, Garrett, go take off and find him. So I'm just like jogging around the Hagia Sophia. They made me run a lot on the trip if there was ever running that was required. This is Hierapolis. Look at that. By the way, here's something you'll learn about the ancients when you visit these sites. They knew what a good view was. Like, they knew how to construct stuff so that you had a beautiful view where you were sitting. The other thing they knew how to do was acoustics. They didn't have microphones, and these theaters are acoustically incredible places to be. But Hierapolis, so I don't think you could, I'm trying to imagine, I think Laodicea is like right here, but standing here, you'd be able to look over and see Laodicea. And then Colossae is going to be over here. So it's that triangle. But you would be able to see those. And by the way, I mean, so you can kind of get a sense in this picture. You see how you can see like way far? You can see like 10 miles away when you're in these cities. This is Ephesus. It's one of the most well-preserved ancient cities that you could visit today at all. This is the theater that Paul's in Acts 19. 50,000 people. They don't have it fully reconstructed. You could imagine the top completing this span over here, and you could imagine this. I mean, look at the tiny people. Can you imagine being in the nosebleeds? I mean, you would. You probably still would be, But you could hear. That's how acoustically incredible these places were. Is you could be one of those people at the top and probably still be able to hear. It's just incredible. This is Laodicea. Now, the ruins here are incredible. When I told you about standing and taking that picture, I was on this platform right here, which I've gotten to where I'm afraid of heights now as I get older, like I'm deathly afraid of heights. And this is actually a glass platform that drops down about 20 feet under you, and they've done that so you can look down and see some of the ruins that are on a lower level. So I was horrified, but I was like, I've got to get this picture. So I stood on this platform, and if you turn over here, Colossae is this direction, and this right here is Hierapolis. Right there. See all that white? What do you think that is? It's not snow. It's calcium deposits. There's a hot spring there where there's minerals that are coming up out of the earth. And the coolest thing that we did there, see, y'all think, let's go to Greece, let's not go to Turkey. We stayed in a 5-star hotel that night that had a pool that was fed by the waters that were coming up out of that hot spring. The pool was 104 degrees. And in your room, you had a separate bath knob where you could turn on the water from the hot spring, not the regular water, and you could take your own mineral bath in your own hotel room. I mean, it was really, really the nicest place I've ever stayed, right? Y'all saw my Facebook, like, our kids think Olive Garden's super fancy. So I've never even walked in a 5-star hotel, much less stayed at one. So that was, this old Tennessee boy got to stay in a Hierapolis hotel. So it's really, really cool, and you'll be amazed by those salt deposits when you see them. This area of the world is not only important for Old Testament, for every element of New Testament, but also in early Christianity. Istanbul is the city of many names. It's gone through a whole lot of names in its history. It's gone through its ancient names, and its ancient name in the early centuries was Byzantium. Have you ever heard of the Byzantine Empire, right? Byzantium, this was the main city. It went by Augusta Antonina. It went by Constantinopolis. It went by the New Rome, and it went by the name Constantinople, and then it became Istanbul later.
Is that where Constantine was exiled to?
So in 330, the Emperor Constantine, he transferred the capital of the Roman Empire from Rome to Constantinople, or modern-day Istanbul. So it was the new capital of what was left at this point of the Roman Empire is called New Rome. The barbarians had been moving into the western part, and they were starting to take over the western part of the Roman Empire, and so the empire was shifting eastward, and so the new capital of Rome became Byzantium. That Eastern Byzantine Empire that was the remnants of the Roman Empire lasted for about another 1,000 years until it was conquered fully by the Ottoman Empire. Have you heard of the Ottoman Empire? So let me explain a couple things to you right here that'll just help you understand some Christian history. Over here is the Western Roman Empire, and in the Western Roman Empire, the capital is in Rome. What language do they speak in the Western Roman Empire?
Greek.
No, Latin. This is why the Roman Catholic Church, who's the Church of the West, what are people always arguing about in the Roman Catholic Church? What language should you have the Mass in, and what language do they have Mass in? Latin, right? Latin Mass, because this is the Church of the West. But over here, Constantinople becomes the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire that becomes the Byzantine Empire. And what language do they speak over there? Greek. And so this is Greek speaking. So have you ever heard of the Roman Catholic Church of the West, and have you ever heard of the Greek Orthodox in the East, the Eastern Orthodox Church? This is that. That's kind of, that's really watered down, but this is what this is. So you have, even today, you have the Pope of the Church of Rome, and you have the Patriarch of Constantinople. So those are kind of the leaders of those different groups. So here's Istanbul right there. Here's a satellite photo. Look at that Bosphorus. That's that. Do you see how large this is? I'm about to show you kind of a more recent picture, but today there's 15 million people in Istanbul. It's a major, one of the world's largest cities. Now, do you remember when we talked about the strategic import of this city, when we talked about Ukraine and Russia? That same dynamic was true in the ancient world. How would you have gotten from anywhere in the Black Sea down to the Sea of Marmara and the Aegean and the Mediterranean? How would you have gone? You'd have had to go here. So if we went back to the ancient world, it would have been an unbelievable city because of its strategic location where you could get to kind of anywhere that you needed to get. Would have been an unbelievable capital of the empire back then. Today, 15.46 million people. It's a massive, massive, massive city. You notice, see this right here? There are mosques everywhere because it's a Muslim country today, and so you'll hear the call to prayer just kind of all the time. I thought surely, because there will be areas that you're in where there's literally 600 mosques in like just a couple mile radius, and in the morning times, you can do it. Do you want to do it? Can you do it? They do it over a really loud microphone at every single one of these mosques, and they do it, they have times call to prayer, and they do it several times during the day. And I thought, surely these are recordings, because how many people can they have that has that weird kind of voice tone and wants to show up 4 times a day and scream into a microphone at you, you know? It's all live. Like they have people that are designated at every time to go and do these. It's crazy. If I understand right, this is an area you know much more than me, but the times for it, they change because of the time in Mecca. So they're lining the times up with Mecca, so it kind of changes. It's not always the same. It's not like 6 a.m. every time. The time may kind of alter.
They've got an incredible app today that can tell you the exact direction and the exact time anywhere in the world.
Yeah. So anyway. Yes. Many of the major ecumenical councils of the early, if you're talking about 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th centuries AD in Christianity, most of the major stuff that happens during that time, they happen at places in modern-day Turkey. Have you ever heard of the Council of Nicaea? There's a lot of other councils that happen. These places are, here's Nicaea, here's Constantinople, this is where they're happening. This is a major place. The Council of Constantinople happens here in this church. Like this is where they met. It's Hagia Irene. So if your name is Irene, it means peace in Greek. And so this is the Peace Church, and this is where they had that important council. One brief, and we still have 5 minutes, so you're stuck here for the next 5 minutes. But just briefly, you might wonder, how do we go from major center of Christianity to 90% Muslim with very, very, very few Christians in Turkey? How did we do that historically? So the Byzantine Empire is what's left of the Roman Empire. It's right here in the orange. You notice that, so this is the the Eastern Greek-speaking. This is the Byzantine Empire. And they last for about another 1,000 years before they're destroyed. The Seljuks were a group that came over here from, I'm trying to think of where modern day countries this would be. I don't know. They came from over here and they overtook the Byzantine Empire around 1000 or 1200 AD. And then the Ottoman Empire is the one that took this over from the Seljuks. And you notice how large the Ottoman Empire was. This is modern-day Turkey right here. And so the Ottoman Empire was a massive, massive empire. Now, the Ottoman Empire peaked in the 1600s, and then they began a several hundred-year period of decline. By the time you get to World War I, the Ottoman Empire is not very strong, but they teamed up with the Germans in World War I. So what do you think happened there? They lose, and whatever is left of the Ottoman Empire was just wiped out. And so the Allied forces occupied the area because they had wiped out the Ottoman Empire. A former Ottoman general named Mustafa Kemal led a liberation army in a war of independence to break the area out of Allied control and to get the Allied countries out of there. and they won. They drove the Allies out. So when we talk about the modern Republic of Turkey, it dates back to their War of Independence, which was from 1919 to 1923. So this is when the modern kind of nation of Turkey began, or the Republic of Turkey started. Now this is a really cool little thing. They love Mustafa Kemal because he's the one that won them their independence, and they're a nation today because of what he did. But in 1934, the Parliament passed a law that everybody had to have a last name. It's called the Surname Law, because before that, people didn't have last names. It's kind of hard to keep track of people. So they adopt this law in 1934. Everybody's got to have a last name. And so the head of the household, the man, got to choose what their surname was going forward. But everybody was like, what do we do about Mustafa Kemal? He didn't have a last name. What name do we give him? And so the Turkish Parliament came up with the last name for him of Ataturk. Now, let me ask you just from what you know about the New Testament. Atta, what is the word in the New Testament for father in Aramaic? Remember what Jesus? Abba. Atta is the Turkish version of father. Turks, Ataturk is father of the Turks. He is the father of the Turks. He's the father of the modern nation of Turkey. And anywhere you go, you are going to see Ataturk everywhere. He is carved in their rocks. He is on their money. He is on their billboard. And we would laugh so hard because they were actually in election season while we were there. And so there's billboards for all these politicians running for all these things. Every single one of them tries to match their mustache to Ataturk. I mean, they want to just look exactly like Ataturk in every kind of publication that they do. It's really funny, but Ataturk's on their money. So anytime you see anything with Turkey, you're going to see something about Ataturk because they love this dude, and he's everywhere. So that's it. I hope you're interested. I hope your interest has been piqued, and we're going to keep looking at different cities now as we go through the rest. So that's all that I have tonight, and I finished a minute early. So, yeah, thanks. I've got some cranberry sauce up here. Nice.
We call it can-shaped gelatinous matter.
Yeah, I'll grab some spoons out the back.